churches and started to learn and started to teach others to read. And that was their drive. And Black marriage in the 1950s was higher than any other group. So again, I am definitely one about the socioeconomic things, but it's not an impediment. For me, it's an explanation, but we don't let it be, we shouldn't let it be an impediment. And so we do. I definitely think it's important that, with the Black church, that like the Black church that I attend, they have mental health groups and they have counseling things that are available, and resources for individuals and families. We have programs in my church for incarcerated persons and their children and their families. And so I think that that would probably be the natural first place to start, because it is always been such a community. The Black church has been such a community bastion in the society, just a foundation, excuse me, in the society. And so just utilizing what we have is important. And in social media, I think it's great to have these platforms and to have these discussions like we're having this weekend, because it stimulates people to want to go and say, well, hey, I'm listening to Dr. Doolin, Coach Jean, or Constance Carter, or Dr. Carter, or Dr. Charm, and maybe I might want to go to therapy, or maybe I might pick up this self-help book and learn something that I didn't learn, or Dr. Alicia and learn something that I didn't know before that's beneficial to me. But I think especially online and on these platforms, we should be stimulating. We should not be a replacement for, but we should definitely be stimulating and being, providing just that spark to get people going.
Oh, very good. Providing a spark. So, Dr. Adrian Carter, can you weigh in? Why are we need to be relationship gurus. Why are we putting ourselves out there? And why don't we have millions of followers on social media? What's your take on that?
Uh, you know, um, One, social media is a free for all, right? Anybody can start an account. I have my best friend, one of my best female friends from um, elementary school. She's a doctor. She's a medical doctor, and she called me and she was talking to me about, hey, how can I help her get some things started going online, talking about medicine, giving practical advice and whatnot. And she has another friend, colleague of hers, who is very popular on social media, and she was saying, how did he do that? Like, I knew him when he was, you know, just over here, and now all these years later, he has this massive presence on social media. Like, how did he do that? And I said to her, I said, you can do it too. And she was like, no, I don't even know how to start. And I was like, yeah, you do. She was like, well, what do I do? I said, you do exactly what he did. Everybody, if you got an iPhone with a camera and a mic, and you know how to type, and you choose a name, and you know how to click. So my point is, the the field is not leveled in terms of education and experience. The platform is leveled in terms of who accesses it, and who pushes a particular brand on it. And I think that's what's missing in, let's call it, the professional community. Okay, the folks sitting here on the panel, right? For those in the professional community, I think what has happened is there is a professional way of doing things, right, which is more organized than the people who are
Yeah.
not a part of the professional group, right? In fact, the irony is, I think the people who are not a part of the professional academy are even more enthused to push a brand, because they have to show themselves above the odds of the people who are in the professional group. So they have to even create more buy-in in what they're producing, because they don't have the professional background, right, to provide the particular service of what they're doing. So
That
I,
makes sense. Yeah. So we're
yeah,
we're so busy like doing our professional work that we don't even think about going on
yeah, yeah,
social
yeah.
media.
We
I'm
walk
good.
around with head in the sky,
I
and
don't have time to do it. Yeah.
don't have time to do it, and thinking at a high level all the
Yeah.
time, and breaking down nuances and all of these big, 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 big words, and trying to triangulate and pontificate and everything with a Asian at the end of it. And while we're doing that, right? And Constance, I'm gonna pick on you with your PhD, okay, with your public high school diploma. While we're doing all of that, Constance is out here like, man, I'm gonna get me this show going, right? And I'm gonna just talk to the people, right?
Yeah.
And while she's just talking to the people, people are like, I like Constance. She just talks to the people. She didn't got them big words with the Asian at the end of him, right? So she just has the. So I think that's where the professional group in the academy misses. I think the second thing too is that if you take a look at the folks on the stage, right? Lord forgive me because I have ladies on the stage. I can't believe I'm about to say that. But you all might be of the older persuasion, right? Y'all may be of the more seasoned persuasion. Y'all ain't millennials. That's all I'm simply trying to say. Okay, y'all are not the millennial group of people. You all did not grow up with an iPhone in your hand. You just got one a couple years ago. My point is, you're dealing with a new generation of people who this is what they know, right? YouTubing, video games, IG, Twitter, and Twitter's old now, right? TikTok comes out and it's you can monetize TikTok. So the world has totally changed in terms of how we are used to thinking, right? Y'all, I'm young. How y'all are used to thinking versus how this other group of people used to think. I'm messing with you, Dr. Dula.
No, I think it's really good. I have a social work background, and so we believe in making micro level changes with my individual clients, but we also believe in making macro level big changes. And so I think this is great for us to start to, maybe we need to, as professionals, we need to change our structure and get with the times and start making bigger changes, not just seeing whatever 30 or 40 clients that I have. A big impact is to think about how, wow, if I have so many followers, I can get this information out to so many more people because we have this knowledge and people want this information. We know because they're calling into shows and they're asking questions. Even I'm looking at some of the statements in the chat. We all kind of need that. So Constance, I want you to give us advice because you have your great show. We all need to have this show. We all need to be relationship gurus. Weigh in on this.
So I like what Laura said. Laura's been chiming in the chat. She said people don't want to sound scholarly advice. They want to watch the show. And I think just like what Dr. Carter said, it goes back to, it's kind of like you have artists, you have people who get into the music business, right? And they sign these horrible contracts. They're great artists, but they know nothing about business. And I think a lot of times with you really highly educated people, you guys are too much in the work to really be able to get down to the level to where you could just talk to people. And it is just so simple, but your brains think at such a highly intellectual level that you don't really kind of realize the simplicity of what it is that you need to do. People just want to hear people talking straight to them. And this is in business as well, right? Because I own a real estate company and I own several businesses and I'm an investor and I just do. I'm pretty fearless in that way where I just do. Like somebody tell me something, I'll just do it. And I'll throw it up against the wall, see if it sticks. But within business and with anything, you just have to try it. And it may not work out the first time. You might sound stupid the first time. You might not get many views the first time. But consistency is the key. And I know when Dr. Boyce brought me on Fly Nubian Queen, he was like, you got to go on every day. And I was like, every day? He was like, every day. I was like, every day? He was like, every day. And I'm like, what am I going to do every day? And it's just that. It's just getting on there and doing it every day. And then it becomes second nature to you. And then you'll start to see some results. But the thing is just doing it and don't overthink it. And that's what you guys are doing. Y'all are overthinking. You guys are brilliant in what you do, but you're overthinking it. So just do it. Be like Nike and just do it. And then as you do it, it gets better and better and better. And again, in the business too, I tell the people who work for me all the time, just go out there and do it and figure it out as you go along. Right? I don't care if you look dumb. I don't care if you look stupid. Just do it.
Constance, I'm so guilty of everything you just said. I am guilty, but I'm going to change this around. This is going to be the weekend where I am just going to do it. And I have been trying to do it. So you guys are so patient with me. But yeah, I consider all of us to be relationship gurus at this point, or at least we should be relationship gurus. Is there something to the idea that relationship experts who give advice on relationships, but at the same time, they struggle with their own relationships. It's the dichotomy, because we all know about, since we're naming names, about Derek Jackson. He's given all this information. And let me tell you, I knew that Derek Jackson was pandering to women. I was totally floored when I found out, number one, he was married. Never thought he was married. Number two, he was sleeping around with all these women. I was shocked by that. And that was something that actually Dr. Boyce said, oh, he's sleeping around with a whole bunch of women. I said, really? He's, oh, yeah, I know. I said, but he's not taking his own advice. he predicted.
We men were not shocked.
Predicted this would happen. And I didn't predict. I knew the pandering, and it got on my nerves and all of that, but I did not think all of this was going on. So Dr. Carter, you started talking. Why don't you talk about this dichotomy of why we're speaking one way, but in our own lives, we're struggling with things. We're putting forth, we're trying to make it seem like we got all the answers, and sometimes we don't.
No, well, first and foremost, Boyce was right. We men were not surprised to find out what we found out about Derek Jackson. Let me be very clear about that. Okay, I'm gonna take 60 seconds, ladies. I'm gonna put you up on game. When I gotta remember my audience here. I'm from Miami, y'all. I'm from the 305. I don't let this PhD fool you. There's some words that I be saying.
Come on, give it to us. Give it. Be Adrian right now. Don't be Dr. Carter.
So there is the game to get women, right? To sleep. There's this get women game. Let's just call it that, right? I'm trying to be clean here as possible, right? And so men know that when a man is trying to get other women, we know what the game is, man to man, right? So when we see a man that's pandering, we know that he's hitting you with the smooth talk so he could get to the draws. Okay. So when a dude only does the smooth talk, well, we know what he's doing. So when a man is telling a woman what she wants to hear all the time and bop 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 and how other men are the problem, and he's willing to throw other men underneath the bus on top of that, oh, this is definitely a get booty game that you're running. So we've known that all the time, which is why men like myself and others would be like, yo, you can't listen to dude because he's just straight pandering to women, and women are eating it up because he's telling them what they want to hear. And that's why I say it's not just, women have to hold themselves accountable at the same time, in the fact that for a lot of them, this is what you wanted to hear. You wanted somebody to tell you that you were the best thing since sliced bread, and not hold you as accountable for your own actions because you wanted somebody to buy into you that way. So we already knew that, right? So it is what it is. So it's not surprising at all. The problem is we understand, even as practitioners, that trying to live the life that you also practice has its own challenges, if we are to be honest, right? I'm a conflict resolution practitioner, do all of that stuff. I'm in some conflict right now, trying to work out some things, right, within my own family dynamics. So we are held to the ground of trying to know better and do better in the space while we also practice. But the thing that happened with Derek Jackson is not the trust that he only broke with his wife. It's the trust that he broke with the public. And I think that the way that he dealt with the matter of the public to try and sell us a book. Remember, I told you this whole thing is about monetization. To try and sell us a book as the process that you and your wife went through already, when we just not hearing about this. That to me, the audacity, right? The audacity, if that to me was the most debilitating part of this whole situation with him. It wasn't the failure in his marriage, right? Between the two of them. And as the stories go, he's been doing this for 13 years, right? Like, this is not even new to his wife. So I don't hold him to the esteem that I think other women have held him, because his message was never balanced. Then that told me he was never a balanced individual.
Very good. Okay, go ahead, Coach Jean and Dr. Dula.
I just wanted to say something that piggybacks off of that, what Dr. Adrian Carter was just talking about with the accountability. And I want to wrap it in also with what we've been talking about those who are practitioners. that Constance was talking about. One of the things about that is somebody like Derek Carter can get shot down, and it's like, oh, boo, 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 we're not going to follow you anymore. The difference in a practitioner that actually has built their career up is that if that kind of thing happens for me, that's literally a loss of life and livelihood. And I just wanted to put that out there. It's like, yes, we want to be out there more, but some of the reason why we don't just shoot from the hip sometimes is because we understand that, wait, let me first look at your file. It's built in. Let me look at your this. Let me consider this. Let me look at what you sent in from the whatever. It's built in that way. And so we're less likely, even as a birth worker, as a doula, someone says, hey, what can I do for morning sickness, whatever. You know what? I don't know your particular background or whatever. You'd have to contact me offline. Also that I just wanted to point out, there's literally, we built up the work that we do over time. And to have someone just come in and to know what social media is, first of all, to understand the whole core and foundation of social media, to have someone come in and then legitimately be able to say something because we didn't do the normal due diligence we would do as a practitioner is a real thing. So there's also a nuance to me to setting up to like, you know, I'm going to do this all the time because it means loss of it. You know, maybe someone is monetizing, you know, on one hand to say, I'm going to monetize from giving my opinions and all the people we've mentioned, you know, shoot from the hip, whatever. But it means a different thing when you're a practitioner in that way. The other thing I wanted to say was when it comes to you know, like the millennials, we talked about it. One of the things, we talk about how the millennials are different. Sure, they're different, okay. But a lot of the advice with these ratings or whatever, and all of the things that are said are from very traditional perspectives. It's like, this is what you need to be as a man. It's coming from a traditional perspective from back in the day. It's not based on any of the things we talked about, the socioeconomic situations. So there is some cognitive dissonance. I use one of those words because I like that word. What you're saying and doing, what you're doing, and it's not lining up, you know. And we talk sometimes a certain way because have matriculated through these institutions. You're just used to code switching. So perhaps if I'm on, you know, one platform, maybe I will lay it down if I'm like, hey, you know, if I'm in a session, I might say it like you can understand what I'm saying. Listen, okay? But you da-da-da-da-da. But if I'm sitting up and I'm in front of people, I'm accustomed to code switching. I'm accustomed to making sure that my most professional face is on. So as we're talking about how can we come together as practitioners and do, that's a real thing.
Let me say this, Dr. Dula, and I don't mean to interrupt you. People need to hear what you got to say, period. Yeah. And you need to figure out how to make that happen. So I understand you do not want to put everything on the line. I'm not telling you to go out there and act a fool. I'm telling you to go out there and do you and be you, right? But just remove those barriers that you've placed in front of yourself that says, okay, I got to do this. I got to check this box. Just do it because people need what you have to offer. Okay. So just look at that. Like you are fulfilling a need. You are helping somebody. Right. So I'm not saying go out and entertain. I'm not saying be Derek Jackson, nobody else. I'm saying be Dr. Dula, be Coach Jean, and go out there and just present yourself in a way because somebody needs to hear what you got to say, and carve your own lane.
Let me add to that too, because what happens is the reason why we're having the concerns that we're having for certain folks who are in the space, having access to the public and having access to the public's ear, is because the question becomes, have the people who are the professionals and from the academy taken the time to build the brand in this new age, right? The same way they have. And that goes right back to what Constance said. If by thinking at such a high level in terms of, can I go to your file? I don't want to prescribe you directly. Matter of fact, these people who don't even have the same professional background that you may have are generating so much money because their audience becomes a lead magnet. and drives them right back to some course or one-on-one.
Mhm.
They're on Clubhouse doing it. And I'm just picking on you. And you trying to worry about a folder. You still trying to hold on, let me get this file. They don't care about no file. You get what I'm saying? Like, you could get the file later. So I think that's where we have to learn to adapt, right?
Yeah.
And be somewhere in the middle, because that's the only way we get to push back on the very thing that you're saying. And I 100% agree with you. So much of the rhetoric they're spewing ties us right back to white supremacy, ties us right back to being of low socioeconomic value. It doesn't help really the family nucleus to move forward in generating wealth, because they're still trying to adapt themselves to these socialized norms that's contextualized within Western culture. So
Well,
until the two of you go do it, then they don't have the narrative doesn't get pushed back on.
Yeah, I just want to say that I am really like bouncing in my chair, because the discussion that all of us are having right now totally mimics the discussion that I had with Boyce. And we go back and forth. He's like, Alicia, why are you seeing all these clients every day? Why don't you put yourself out there? I'm like, why? Who wants to hear what I have to say? You're like, listen, look at what they have to say. And I never really, it just never occurred to me. Constance, you and Boyce are totally on the same page. He said, look at all these people. And it was out of these conversations that he's like, no, we're doing a Black Love Weekend. This conversation is what made Boyce. So I just want to like thank Boyce for like hearing me. This is like perfect advice. He listened to what I had to say, and maybe at the moment he didn't really let me know he heard me, but clearly he heard me, because he put his time, money, effort, everything to put this on, and I think he did it for me. So I totally appreciate that he did that out of my frustration with what I was seeing with some of these relationship gurus. We all named them. And it was my frustration. I said, we need to clear the noise, and we need to bring some really good people out there. So let this be a way for us to continue this. I'd like to continue these types of conversations going forward throughout the year. And anybody else want to weigh in on the fact that we as relationship gurus, we're going to call ourselves relationship gurus now, but we also struggle with some of our own some of our own personal relationships, and seeing that kind of dichotomy. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah,
I think, who hasn't
I
talked
like
yet?
to
Dr.
talk. I
Charm
like
or
to.
Constance?
Yeah, I like to chime in on. I think that when I was in medical school, we had to take some business classes, and you practice medicine, you practice the clinical part, but you have to also realize that there's a business. This is a business, and you have to, you got to market. And so one thing with Derrick Jackson, and taking, he freaking humiliated his wife on the, on the Bill Gates's internet and everything else, but then he's got a book out, and I got to admire the business acumen that, hey, you know what? We went through this, and we went through this. Well, here, buy my book. so I think that it's great if you have all these ideas that you can pontificate, but if you're in a room of one, then what good is it? So I think on the other hand too, we've got licenses to protect, and we've got credentials to protect. So we want to, okay, Dr. Dula, I see the facial expression. And so we want to be cautious, but you can be cautious and still get your word out and have personality and be business minded. And I think there is a space for us, because you do have people here that don't have any training and don't have a lot of things that are, are requisite to do this kind of work. And I think there is a place for lay people. There definitely is. There's a place for mother wit and common sense, which is not so common after all, but we have to be business people. And right now, if you want to be successful, you've got to be online. You've got to be on YouTube or TikTok, or, and I see that some of my natural colleagues that are they'll do YouTube videos on hey, I want to talk about this vitamin. And it's, this is some stuff that's helping people, but they're putting it on a platform, and it's valid information, and they studied in school and blah, blah, blah. And a housewife at home who may want to get something for her kids and say, hey, there's this coronavirus, or it's cold and flu season, and I want to know about vitamin C. I don't know what I should do. Maybe I don't feel comfortable talking to my doctor about it. Guess what? I'm turning on YouTube and so is talking about this vitamin, and they're able to monetize it. So there's a space for everybody with this. Or maybe, someone who was thinking about having a hospital birth, and they're looking at the mortality, the infant mortality and the maternal mortality on hospital births, and maybe they may be a candidate to have a doula, or look at another alternative birth plan, and they might have caught Dr. Doula and Coach Jean on YouTube talking about some of these alternatives here. So there's a space for everybody, and that's all I gotta say about it.
Oh, that is great. Anybody else want to comment before we move on?
I do. I want to say, Dr. Timms, first of all, I wanted to challenge Dr. Alicia and Dr. Boyce as it relates to the guru expert term. I like the whole professional idea, the practitioner or professional. We'll be to one side and we'll be the professionals. But I do, as to what you were saying, Dr. Timms, want to thank Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia for providing that safe space, providing that village, so that we can listen to Dr. Carter, because, not Dr. Carter, Dr. Constance Carter, right? PhD Constance Carter, because we know that she would not be here speaking if she wouldn't be validated, right? If she wasn't validated as a professional who practiced what she preached. So we want to thank you guys for having venues like this to have professionals, professional practitioners who have put in their money where their mouth is. They actually have the experience to back up the words that they're saying. So this Black Love Weekend, the Fly Nubian Queen, the Black Business School is all coming from a place where people are interested in seeing Black people excel and go forward. So, let YouTube and Clubhouse be what it is. But if you want to be educated, if you want to grow and understand your unique design from professionals who care and who are being held accountable, why not try the Black Business School?
And check us out, because we're on all those platforms. But once again, people want a show, and we're not there to give them a show.
We're
so
not
what
here
else?
to give you a show.
We try.
No, you're Coach Jean and Dr. Doula, you two are very interesting. Definitely have your own show. It's really interesting. I think, just to go back to the theme is relationship gurus who will die alone. And it is a reality in our community that some of us struggle with relationships. And I know Dr. Carter and some other people talked about how, it's a difficult time finding somebody who you want to pair up with and get married, considering some of the challenges. And I'm going to read a statement, and I'd like for all of you to comment on this statement. And this is my statistical statement. African Americans are less likely to marry each other due to perceived shortages of Black men due to incarceration, drug use, high homicide rates, high employment rates, and poverty. This explains why 40% of African Americans have never been married compared to 25% of whites. African Americans who are married report greater marital dissatisfaction and have a higher separation and divorce rate than any other group. In fact, remarriage rates are lower, particularly for African American women. 66% of white women remarry 10 years after divorce, and 32% of Black women remarry after divorce. We have heard some people say that racism and economic marginalization have placed undue burden on African American relationships, and that experiences with discrimination and factors such as their internalized racism and or displacement of these experiences can lead to negative and unsupportive behaviors in their relationship, in that home. And this can create and foster anger and frustration that is then displaced onto their partner. And so this creates a unique dynamic in the households of Black families. How anybody want to respond to that? Who should we start with?
I'd like to
Dr.
start.
Charm.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll be brief. There isn't a perceived shortage. We do, statistics show that mass incarceration has really decimated the Black family in a lot of ways. And so we are fighting racism, white supremacy at every point in turn. And we're even unfortunately having to fight it in our own homes. That's supposed to be your sanctuary. But we're getting hit and we're getting assaulted at every turn. And when you get home, uh, you know, that's where our family and our loved one is supposed to be our solace. But but again, I have to go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which basically states that if you don't have the basics like food, shelter, clothing, it is impossible to get to these higher ideals like love and faith and all this. We are struggling to get our basic needs met. The median Black family has a net worth of $1,700. Okay. So I don't say that as a crutch. I don't say that as an excuse. I say it as a reality. Okay, it's there. So we tackle that. But realize that that's there going into these other, dismal statistics. And so I cannot walk around as a person who is seeking sanity in this world and think about that at every point in turn. I cannot. I have to know that that's there and then put that where back there and then go on and build on the other things. But just realize if you want an explanation, that's your basic one. It's your basic one. But I don't think it's impossible. Again, like I said, in the 50s, when we were experiencing some of the most outwardly brutalized forms of racism that we've ever seen in this country, we had the highest marriage rate of any group. So I'm always a person of faith. I'm always a person of hope. We have strategies, we have solutions. Look at all these PhDs and all this in the room and stuff. We got people out on the ground. We have we have families and foundation, and let our family be our solace, but realize that we are fighting this at every turn.
Beautiful. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? Go ahead, Constance.
I love what Karen said. She said, y'all don't see no brothers out there. We got some in Ontario, Canada. So I'm gonna go ahead and make that trip on out there to Ontario. But I'll say, I have been married for a long time. I have been with my husband since I was 15, and we were married for a very, very long time. It didn't work out. We're in the process of getting a divorce, but it's very amicable, and we're navigating through that. And I believe that eventually that I will find somebody who is matched for me. I think that we have to really look at our emotional intelligence. And I think that, it just comes back to, because there are so many dreary statistics. There are so many things that says that what we can't have or what we can't do. And, I just personally believe that I've been able to, crush a lot of the myths of the things that they said that I couldn't have, based upon who I am, my gender, my sex, and all of those other things. And so I just believe that we have to manifest those things as though they are, and stop looking at all the other things that are going on around us, and just start really focusing on what we can have and what we can do. And you can have that person that's meant for you, and you can have that person that's going to grow with you, and that's going to love you, that you can trust, and that are all of those things that can really fulfill your life. So I just look at it, and we just have to look at things a little bit differently. Stop looking at the negativity and the things that we can't have, and the things that ain't going on. And if you look at statistically, everything that's bad, we're on the top of the list, and everything that's good, we're on the bottom of the list, period. Mm-hmm. We know that. What can we do to change the narrative for you individually? And that's how, otherwise we're going to drive ourselves crazy by thinking about all the negativity that's out there. We absolutely will. So that's where I am.
Thank you, Constance. And I just wanted to say thank you for disclosing, your personal information about getting divorced. And I wish you the best with that. I hope it stays amicable, because I know what that feels like. And it's tenuous sometimes. So thank you for disclosing that. And Coach Jean and Dr. Doolin, you wanted to weigh in next?
Definitely. And literally, Constance said it at the end, talking about the negative energy. I remember, and this is one of those, it's about scholarly stuff, but it's just to put us all on the same level. The same data is gathered it'll be gathered. And then people go in and they interpret the data. So for example, like Constance just said again, we're always in the deficit place. But I think it was maybe 2017 or 2018, someone revisited data that said, oh, Black fathers are more likely than any other race to be
Yes.
involved with their children.
Yep. I've seen that, yeah.
It was not collected. It wasn't new data collected. It was the same data, but it was interpreted and it was put out for different reasons by a different person or whatever. You said before about the cohabitation. The very first thing that you said was African Americans were, I think, less likely to marry. When we come from that space of, oh, they're not getting married, that's putting that thing right there that says, oh, everybody, you need to be married in order to count, in order to be counted as a whatever relationship. But I think about my big mama, my dad's mom, they had 8 children. This back in the 1950, whatever. He's the oldest. He said, I remember the day that mom and daddy went to Utah, whatever county, and got their marriage license. And I said, Daddy, well, was it different after they got the license? He said, nope, they left in the morning, came back, put it up on the wall. And I said, was it different? He said, no, they were already committed in what they were doing. There are various reasons why things happen the way they do. We have to be mindful and understand, my husband and I also work with, energy workers and things like that. My favorite comment is, he'll be doing his meditations in the morning. He's like, I was downstairs speaking to my water, because we're like 60, 70, whatever % water. I was speaking to my water, and it matters. There are all kinds of research about what we are hearing. What's worse than someone else saying stuff to us and saying that negativity that we're trying to escape is when we're saying it to ourselves, when we are saying those things that are imprinting on us. So if we understand, yes, the research is very real, but they have shaped this. How can we go and depend on our oppressors, the ones who have set up to do whatever they're going to do, and then say, you're the one I'm going to go to believe, and find my value? It's the same data. Yes, we're, compared to whites, that's my favorite line, compared to whites, we are da-da-da. Compared to this, we are whatever. But when we remember who we are, and we remember we have a source that goes deeper, then we can do different things. I love Dr. Boyce and the emphasis always on B1, Black first, Black first, Black first. We should be asking ourselves, who said this about me? What was their motive in saying it about me? How did they benefit from saying it about me?
I love it. Mm-hmm.
Why? Because we are the end.
Our own answer. We're our own answer. There's not just one way to be. We even talk about archetypes. What's your archetype? Figure it out. We base it on who we are as Black people, who we have been, our history. One last thing. The thing that even got me on this page was when I was doing my doctoral research, I was looking at Black relationship education, whatever. And I showed up all Black faces teaching. Everybody that was teaching was Black. But they said this one line in every course. They said, there was a time when I didn't have to work. Mm-hmm. So why do they keep saying that? Everybody in my family has worked. Every Black woman I know except one has had to work. And if that's the case, if it's the case that that's our history, then we should not be, when we talk about these people that are being promoted or whatever for telling you how to get a high value man or whoever else, our history doesn't necessarily go with that. When we look at our history, we understood that, hey, she might get the education. I'm gonna go work in the factory. We're gonna work this out so that we can build legacy. We always, until we got integrated and we started feeling ourselves, now we deserve what they got. We want what they got. But before we were integrated, we had our own bus companies, our own theaters. We had our own stuff. But now we are comparing ourselves without them having to tell us to whatever they majority culture are doing. Look at us compared to them. I get some.
Thank you so much. You got the spirit there. It caught you. So I didn't want to interrupt that. Last, we will go to Dr. Adrian Carter. Please weigh in on those numbers if there's anything you would like to add to this conversation.
Um, gosh, it's my mind's all over the place about it because I'm not too sure what a lot of us as a Black community sometimes want specifically when it comes to relationships. My concern borders similar to what Dr. Dula talked about is that a lot of the conversation that we have around relationships is centered on white America, right? So I'm going to speak from a slanted perspective as a Black straight heterosexual male, right? So I'm incurring women. And what I hear from women are things that are just not reasonable in a lot of ways in terms of what their expectations are in relationships. And a lot of that conversation stems to an idealized notion of what it means to be in a relationship based on how white people run their relationship. And I keep on hearing Black women wanting to hold Black men to those socioeconomic norms. And Black men are pushing back, especially in the 21st century, because mathematically it doesn't make sense anymore, right? I don't understand how you can hold me to being the breadwinner when we are both faced with the same challenges in the workplace. And as our society progresses in this more matriarchal world, let me be very clear about that. I think we're moving to a more matriarchal United States. And the matriarch is the Black woman. You find her having even more access in certain ways than what the Black men do, but yet she continues to hold the Black man's feet to a traditional construct of what a man is supposed to be, while she wants to maintain a contemporary construct of who she shows up as in the 21st century. And I think that's a very big challenge that men have to overcome. Now, you do have a group of men who obfuscate their relationships, their responsibilities as men in relationships, but that's not what I'm talking about. In terms of how we look at these particular numbers and how it plays out in the breakdown, I'm concerned for men being able to live up to a narrative that is designed for them to fail. And I'm concerned for how women continue to hold their feet in the very quicksand and ask them, why can't they stand up straight?
Very good. Yeah, it's almost like I want to be able to be a stay-home mom like everyone else. Why can't you make more money so it can happen? Well, they're like, I'm a little constrained by circumstances as well. So very good, Dr. Carter. It's time to wrap up this wonderful panel on relationship gurus who will die alone. We're going to be relationship experts. I think, Coach Jean, I agree with you. Maybe not the word gurus, but we'll come up with another word. It is time for us to now, we're going to get millions of subscribers. We're going to come together, and we're going to have a bigger impact than some of these other people who are potentially damaging to others. I would like for all of you all, I just want to thank you all for taking out time on your weekend, on a Sunday, to addressing us and giving all of this information that you've given today, great perspectives today, great professional thinking today. And so I would like for you all to just have some final words and let everybody know how to reach out to you all. And where should we start? Let's start with Constance. Constance Carter, you start. Let everybody know how to get a hold of you and something about yourself and final thoughts.
Hey, everybody. So thank you, guys. I appreciate being on the panel. I'm going to be very, very brief. You can follow me. I am Constance Carter on IG. I'm on every night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fly Nubian Queen. So come check me out. I talk about motivation. I talk about money, but I also talk about Black love as well. And I just have a good time with it. Listen, if there's everything I do, and I'm a CEO of the largest African-American owned real estate firm in California. I'm an